everybody, and welcome to another exciting episode of Daily December 2019. Um, this is the day 11, and I'm still a couple days behind. I'm trying to record a couple today to catch up, and yeah. Quick update on me. I am not doing okay right now. I'm having a really hard time recording videos. This is actually my second attempt just recording this video. And I've made videos before about how this is not a good time for depressives in general. The holiday season is always really rough on people with depression. Um, I'm not going to go into too much detail of that. Me personally, not only is it a bad time just for depression, lots of bad things happen to me personally around this time of year. We had to put my dog to sleep. Lots of other things I can't talk about. Like it's just it's a bad time of the year for me. So, today, I want to talk about something that a lot of people don't think about. There's a lot of people that think it's hocus pocus and it's debated, but I myself have found that there is a branch of psychology, and by branch I mean like little itty bitty twig, called deception detection, and it's really pioneered by a psychologist by the name of Paul Ekman. His work is controversial in the idea that he not that what he says is taboo or anything, but a lot of his claims are difficult to reproduce without his specific training. And quite a few psychologists just kind of write it off as sleight of hand, but basically. But I studied it myself as much as I can, and I have my own kind of innate ability to tell when people are lying. So a combination of those two means it's extremely hard for people to lie to me. It wasn't always that way. I think I've mentioned this before, but my first girlfriend was a pathological liar. She lied literally about everything. And the thing that makes pathological lying different from someone that just lies and manipulates people a lot is pathological lying. They can't stop, and so they will just lie about things that don't make sense. Like, not kidding. She told me that she toured South America with her class when she was in like middle school as part of a children's choir, talking about saving the rainforest. There was no reason to tell me that, and at I was a senior in high school when we started dating. I was already a vocalist at that point. Like, I'd been singing in choir and doing musicals since freshman year of high school, and I was a trained musician even longer before that. She couldn't carry a tune. I'd heard her sing. It was painful. But she convinced me she was in a children's choir that toured South America. If anyone's wondering why that's just for some odd reason that sounds familiar, it's not because anyone's actually done that. It's because it was the plot of a South Park episode. And at that point in my life, I wasn't allowed to watch South Park. I didn't start watching it till I was in college and was allowed to pick my own TV shows. So I believed her. She told some just crazy stuff. And a lot of it was meant to, because not only was she a pathological liar, she was also an abuser. And so a lot of the lies she told were meant to separate me from everyone. She gaslit me. And by gaslit, I don't mean, oh, she lied a lot, which is what everyone seems to think it is. No, she made a targeted campaign of lies to make me doubt my own sanity so that I could only trust her. That's what gaslighting is. It's not someone that lies a lot. It's someone who systematically tells lies and creates false evidence so that you question your own sanity and have no choice but to rely on them for everything. If it doesn't come from them, you don't believe it's true because you can't trust your own senses. That's why gaslighting is bad. It's not somebody that lies a lot. Please stop using gaslighting like that. Anyway, so after breaking up with her and finding out she'd only been cheating on me for a year and a half of our 2-year relationship, my mind overcorrected, and I became hypersensitive to lies in general. Then I saw a TV show called Lie to Me, which was brilliant and needed to keep going on for forever because I loved it. But it was based on the work of Paul Ekman. Now, it was a TV show, so not everything they said in there was true. They would make stuff up to further the plot. But a lot of it was based on Ekman's science, and I actually started reading it. And when you combined a just kind of natural ability to read people pretty well with science about how people lie, it turns into a pretty effective way of me being really good at telling when people are lying. And there's lots and lots of things you can use to tell when someone's lying. None of it works 100% of the time. Different people have different tells, as anyone has ever played poker will tell you. And different lies will exhibit differently. So there is an art to it rather than concrete, okay, every time this muscle moves, that means this. However, there are some general rules that tend to work pretty well when to tell when someone's lying, simply because unless you're really, really good, everybody does these things for the most part. So I figured this vlog, I could just give you guys a couple of tips that I have used very effectively to tell when people are lying to me. Now, one other thing you need to understand, if you can tell that someone's lying, that doesn't mean you know what the truth is. It doesn't even mean you know what the lie is. You can just tell that there is a lie in there. A lot of people assume, well, since people can't really lie to me, I must know a lot of. No, it just means when I know when people aren't being truthful with me. I don't know what they're being untruthful about unless I dig really deep. And the stuff I'm going to talk about here is not going to give you the ability to dig really deep. That takes some innate talent and a lot of science to do effectively. And it's still not, again, it's not a science as much as it is an art form, and you can be wrong. And if you're wrong about the wrong thing, bad things can happen. So, anyway, like I said, this is something that fascinates me, and it's something that a lot of people don't realize are really simple tells to be able to see when people are lying. The first one, and to me the most obvious, or at least it was until my anxiety got as bad it is eye contact. A lot of people think if you break eye contact when you're speaking, that means that you are lying. It's a really well-known wives' tale. What breaking eye contact means, there's actually a couple different things. One, it can be a comfort thing. Making prolonged eye contact is can be very intimate, and people that don't do well in intimate settings will have a hard time keeping eye contact. So it could just mean that whatever is being said is starting to become too intimate for them, and they need to break the eye contact to lessen that connection. It can be very uncomfortable. It's very, very common in people with anxiety disorders. People in the autism spectrum will have issues maintaining eye contact. So that is one explanation. However, if you have someone that generally does make eye contact with you, you know them pretty well, and the better you know someone, the easier it is to tell when they're lying. So if you do have someone that generally makes eye contact, but during a conversation they start breaking eye contact, generally that's a sign of guilt, not lying. What that is they're guilty, or they're ashamed of whatever it is they're saying, and that doesn't mean that they're lying. They could be telling the truth, and they're ashamed of the truth that is coming out. They could be lying, and they're ashamed about the lie that they are telling you because it's breaking the trust you've made. But overall, it's not a good indicator of a lie being told. There's so many other explanations for decreased eye contact or breaking eye contact that it's not really a useful method for telling when someone's lying. On the other hand, increased eye contact generally is a good sign that someone is lying. Generally, there's two main reasons why someone would want to increase the eye contact that they're having with you. Again, eye contact is very personal and intimate. If someone is interested in you, they may maintain an abnormal amount of eye contact with you to create a connection, either subconsciously or consciously. However, even that, they will maintain eye contact. It will click they're doing it, and then they'll break. So you'll have intense eye contact, and then breaks, and then intense. However, if someone is just staring you down while they're saying something, and throughout the rest of the conversation, they're just, having a normal conversation where they'll talk, and maybe they'll look here, or maybe they'll look at your shoulder, or your mouth, and then your eyes, and that's a normal thing in a conversation. But if you watch them change and just start looking at you and making a lot of eye contact as they say something, that is a sign that they are lying. And the reason they're making more eye contact is they need to know if you are if you're believing their lie. Um, I have actually used this in a conversation with a very good friend that was making some poor decisions. And as we were, I had invited her out for coffee, so we could talk about this. And we were extremely close. She was my best friend at the time. Um, and I'm not going to go too much into what she was doing, but um, involves some decisions that could be dangerous to her, were not great for her own well-being. Um, and so we just kind of sat down and I was talking. We were talking about this stuff that I felt wasn't good for her, and she was talking about it. And I asked her a few questions, and she wouldn't take her eyes off me as she was talking. And there's a couple other things that I'll talk about in a minute here. But towards the end of the conversation, she goes, "Why do you look so upset?" I said, "Because you've never lied to me before." And at that point, she hadn't. We were friends in high school, but we weren't very close. And then after I dropped out of college and moved back to my hometown, we became extremely close. Nothing romantic. We were just very, very good friends, and we were brutally honest with each other. And that, for me, that's a really important aspect of friendship, is someone that can be very honest with me and doesn't mind when I'm very honest with them. For me, that's a very intimate relationship without romance. So I told her, well, you've never lied to me before, and you just lied like 3 times. And she looked at me in panic at first, and then anger. She goes, "Well, how do you know I lied?" And the first thing I said, "Because you just made a lot more eye contact throughout this entire conversation. You haven't looked me in the eye once until I asked that question, and then you couldn't take your eyes off me." Because she was also rather ashamed of what was going on. And she got flustered, and she went through so many emotions in like 5 seconds. And then she confessed. She's like, "Well, yeah, I lied, but it was because," and she just kept going on. I'm like, "But don't you see? Our relationship is really good. It's really healthy. And this new thing that you're doing is making you destroy that relationship. The basic foundation of the relationship is honesty and truth. And you've just completely thrown that out the window. Don't you see how that's a bad thing?" And then other things happen that I won't get into. But like I said, I have seen this in real life. It's a real thing. And it's a pretty good indicator that something that they're saying is untrue. Does it mean the entire, the entire statement is a lie? No, a lot of people work truth into their lies to make it more palatable. It's just an indicator. Second indicator that someone is telling the truth, or someone is telling a lie, is if you ask them a simple question and they give you a complicated answer. Something like, "Hey, did you take the last cookie?" And instead of going yes or no, or maybe, "Yeah, but I was hungry," it's, "Of course I would never take that. Why would I do that?" You already know that I'm not a huge fan of chocolate chip cookies. I prefer just straight up sugar cookies. So obviously there would be no reason for me to take. That's a lie. And this is something you see all the time. And the reason this happens is the person that's telling the lie knows it's a lie. They don't believe it. And because of that, they feel the need to defend it, to convince you that it's true because they don't believe it. And this is extremely common to see. You will see lawyers will latch onto that when you give a really, really wordy response, but police as well. When you give a really, really wordy response to a very simple question, they will immediately think, okay, something's wrong. And you can even see this in politics. If you really want to kick, watch a press conference. I think my favorite example recently, and I don't want to stir up controversy or anything. I don't care about your political leanings or anything, and I don't care what your opinions on the current state of politics in this country or in any other country. This is just a really good example of someone lying. Nancy Pelosi was doing a press conference a couple of days ago, I think. And as she was walking off, one of the reporters asked, "Why do you hate Trump?" Or "Do you hate Trump?" Something along that line. I think it was, "Do you hate Trump?" Because her answer was like 5 to 10 minutes of her explaining, I was raised a good Catholic woman, which is all about love. I do not hate any. She went on this tirade about how it was physically impossible for her to hate Trump, and how it was so insulting that someone would even imply that that was a motivation for her. It was a complete fallacy. Now, not talking about anything else in that press conference. It's not happening here. It was just that one statement was a pure fabrication. She didn't believe what she was saying, so she pulled every single excuse she could possibly come up with to defend the lie she was telling. Now, just because you know someone is lying doesn't mean you know why they were lying. And that is true about this. The only thing we really can say we know is the statement, "I don't hate Trump," was a lie. That doesn't mean I do hate Trump is true. It just means that that first statement is false. And as much as people would like to think that hating somebody is a yes or no thing, it's a very complex emotion. So I'm not going to try and read into her actual motivations or anything. I can just tell you that was a perfect example of a lie. And I'm not the only person that picked up on that. One of my favorite YouTubers, Viva Fry, who's a Montreal litigator. He's a lawyer from Canada. He does these things called V-Law, so vlogs, but with LAW in the middle, and where he talks about the law and legal proceedings and stuff like that. They're really fascinating. But he did a video on that, and he brought that up as well. Yeah, anytime you see someone give a complicated answer to a simple question, they're lying. So that's another really useful way to tell when people are lying. If you think someone is lying to you, ask them simple questions. The more complicated the question, the more difficult it will be to tell if they're lying to a point. Again, there's a lot of other ways you can tell if someone's lying. Lawyers and law enforcement learn a ton of them. Some of them trained by Paul Ekman, because he used to get hired out to everyone from the TSA to the FBI. He used to hire him to teach the deception detection. But if you just want to know if someone's lying, and a pretty simple thing to do is watch for eye contact, ask them simple questions. When someone says the truth, it's true. They don't feel any need to defend it because it's true. If they're saying something that's false, they will feel the need to defend it, and they will feel the need to convince you it's true because it's not. Now, like I said, this is not 100%. Some people can over-explain themselves if they're nervous, if they feel that you don't believe them, if you are giving them through body language or tone or whatever that you are not believing them, they may over-explain as well. So again, none of these are 100%, but that one specifically tends to be like in the high 80s from my experience. The final one that, again, I myself have used is when people lie, their vocal pitch tends to raise. For me, this is extremely obvious because I have perfect pitch. I know, the vocal range of all my friends. I know what their normal speaking voice is. And I can tell when they're making changes to that because that's just how my brain works. For your average person, if you can see them talking normally and telling the truth and then hear them lie, there's a decent chance you'll be able to pick up that their voice goes up a little bit when they're telling a lie. Going back to the example I gave, when my friend was lying to me, and I said, "Well, you've never lied to me before." She said, "Well, how do you know? No, I lied." I said, "Do you want the whole list or just the top 10?" As just a joke. But she goes, "I want the whole list." I said, "Okay. Well, first things first, you haven't made eye contact with me this whole conversation. But when you were saying these things, you never took your eyes off me." "Well, I thought when you lie, you look away." I said, "No, when you're guilty, you look away. When you lie, you check my face to see if I'm believing you." Second, I asked you a very simple question. You gave me an extremely long answer. People are telling the truth tend to be kind of curt and short because it's the truth. They don't need to explain it, but if you don't believe what you're saying, you will feel the need to defend it and convince me that it's true because you know it's not. And you're just as much convincing me as trying to convince yourself. And the third one is your vocal pitch raised rather noticeably. Like you went up like 2 steps at least. Which is a big change for you personally. And again, she looked at me with disgust, a whole bunch of things. She looked a little bit betrayed, and she said, "Well, yes, but it's none of your business." I said, "Then to tell me that? I'm perfectly fine with you saying that this is none of my business. It's your life, but just tell me that." See, you don't believe that either. You're just angry that I found out that you were lying. And then we had a really deep conversation about it. And it ended with us not speaking for, I think, 9 months at that point. Because she was doing her thing and I was doing my thing, and she didn't like the fact that my thing tended to include, "Hey, by the way, what you're doing is not only dangerous and bad for you, but could end up seriously not only hurting you, but some of your friends. But, you could keep on doing whatever it is you want to do." And so, yeah, it ended poorly. We did eventually reconcile and build back some of that relationship. But then agoraphobia and social anxiety came up, and now we don't talk at all. Not because there's anything bad between us. It's just I don't do well on phone conversations with this stutter, and I can't meet people in person anymore. And she actually has a life, so yeah. But yeah, those are some tips to tell if people are lying. Now, again, even if somebody shows every single one of these signs, it doesn't 100% guarantee that they're lying, or even that the entire statement they made was a lie. If you really want to get good at deception detection and being able to figure out what the truth is and isn't, takes a lot of practice and study. However, if you're just trying to find out, like, if you've got kids, if you're trying to figure out if your kids are lying to you, this is a pretty great way to at least get that initial inkling and do some investigating. Or I generally would say avoid looking too much into a significant other, because relationships are full of lies in general, and some of them are damaging to the relationship, and some of them are good for the relationship. A little dishonesty that doesn't hurt all the time. So be careful where you use this knowledge. But if you want to sit down and have a lot of fun, watch politicians and just look for those four things. You know, look for eye contact. With politicians, what you need to do is eye contact for them is going to be reading the press that they're talking to. If they are talking to other politicians, it's hard to tell what they're focusing on. But in a press conference situation, they will either have teleprompters or notes. And when they look up and sit there and really scan a crowd, that's when they're saying something that may not be 100% true, and they're checking to see who believes them. When their vocal pitch raises, something may be up. When they're getting questions and they give a really complicated answer, much more complicated than the question needed, which again is not every single complicated answer is a lie. It's when the explanation given is significantly more complicated than the question that was asked. They're lying. Yeah. So the final thing that I have noticed, and I specifically noticed it in a live stream a while back, where, again, not going to give details, but a certain person was trying to defend themselves in a very drama-filled situation. So they were telling their side of the story. Throughout the entire time they were talking, they were because it was very sad story. They were very morose and upset, but they kept smiling throughout the entire thing. It wasn't like it was just this little smirk at the corner of their mouths. You could just see this tiny little smirk at the corner of their mouths. That's what's called a micro expression. They flash, I think, at a fifth of a second. So they're extremely difficult to notice unless you know what to look for. And that specific one is called Duper's Delight. And I've seen it firsthand in person when people have lied to my face and online and things like that. It is a real thing, and what it is when they say something and they get feedback that it tells them that the people they're lying to, or the person they're lying to, believes them. That kind of rush of just endorphins and joy that, whew, they believe me, because lying is really hard work. Um, they will feel happy despite whatever feeling they're supposed to have at the event. They will feel happy, and that happiness will just sneak out at the corner of their mouths. So if you're really not sure, and you just want to have a fun experiment, when you know someone is lying to you, let them think you believe them and watch the corners of their mouth. It is the craziest thing, because it's relatively accurate. Of all the things I've talked about, that's the one that I think has been most often for me personally that I've seen, is Duper's Delight just happens. And I think mostly because it's a completely subconscious thing, and people don't know about it. When you're taught to lie, they will tell you keep your answers simple. Don't change eye contact, stuff like that. You can train yourself not to do all of these things. And you can train yourself to not give away Duper's Delight. However, because that's an involuntary muscle movement compared to the other ones, which are technically choices that you make. They may be subconscious, but they're still choices. Duper's Delight is involuntary. It's not even subconscious. It's just a reaction to masking your feelings. It's a lot harder to train yourself not to do that, and generally requires you to basically learn how to hold down your emotions rather than control those muscles. Anyway, I hope you guys found that interesting. Like I said, if you want to read more about things like micro expressions, the universal facial expressions that Dr. Ekman was able to find and prove, look up Paul Ekman. Like I said, his research is controversial in the idea that some of the psychological community believes it's completely made up horse shit. But it's really fascinating. And like I said, I've at least parts of it that I've been able to research, I've put into practical use. Anyway, that's all for me right now, and I will see you guys next time. All right? Bye-bye.